Hello, my name is Westin.
My name is Natalie.
And this is The Lighter the Darker. Today we are going over every single board game in our collection and a few stories to go along with them. Now, talking about our space and sci-fi games, the first one on our list is Inhuman Conditions. This is a deeply tense game where you have to figure out whether or not your opponent is a human or a robot, or you're trying to convince your opponent otherwise. This is more of a collector's game. It's kind of indie, a little bit niche. The components are just absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, when we got this game shipped to us, the person just stuffed the box into another box that was way too small for it and shipped it with absolutely no wrapping at all. Thankfully, I got it for a small price, but it did really hurt my heart to see a damaged collector's item like that. One that is absolutely so beautiful. I don't know, everything about it is artistic, and they do actually have, I don't know if you knew this, but a print and play version, which you're always free to use that, but we absolutely will prefer the original.
Yeah, it's really a fun game. It's super quick and requires very minimal setup. So it's really a fun one when you're just trying to hang out, trying to connect, but don't have a ton of energy. It does require a very specific type of energy. We are both also actors, and so we love the kind of like theater, the theatrical, the improv kind of muscles that this game works. So we really, really enjoy it. It's very different than a lot of our other games.
It is different than any board game I've ever played. Absolutely. The next one we're going to talk about is Giant Killer Robots Heavy Hitters. This is a game a lot of people know about, but the pre-painted miniatures are absolutely beautiful. This is a game about claiming your robots win to fame as you tag buildings and fight each other. I've just always appreciated the epicness of this game.
Yeah, again, it's a game you'll see that has a very different feel. All the games are very diverse, but this game has a really different feel, even in the miniature style, than even a more traditional miniature or more traditional game. It's really different, and I appreciate that about it.
No doubt. So our third game in our space and sci-fi series is Sign Tempora, made by Ludus Madness Studios. We were blessed to actually get this with Mythic Battles Pantheon for like an extra $30. It has 2 expansions with it, and it is a wonderful exploration-based dungeon crawler with asymmetric characters and honestly a really well-written story.
The next game we're going to talk about is Fired Up. This is just, again, a super interesting, unique game where it's kind of almost co-op, but not quite. You are fighting against each other, but you're more voting on things that are happening in an arena in front of you, which I've never played a game like that before, so it's super interesting.
We love it. We also have Starship Samurai, which is a very cool mech samurai game where you're battling in space.
We also have Star Wars Outer Rim. I think this is our only Star Wars themed game. It's a really cool game. There's a lot of diversity in that kind of genre, that theme of Star Wars, so this is one we like.
Absolutely, especially if you love the bounty hunter side of Star Wars, it'll be right up your alley. We have Scythe, which is a totally famous game. Most people have played it. It kind of fit within our sci-fi genre, as well as The Captain is Dead, Dangerous Planet, where you're literally trying to escape an alien race killing you. So Moving on to our dungeon crawlers, we have Midara, which again is a very popular game, but we love the extra mats we got with it, as well as the expansion. I don't know if you have grown up liking anime, this is your perfect game.
Mm-hmm. Another game that we wanted to highlight is Solomon Kane. So this is a Monolith game, is that correct?
That is correct.
And as you guys know, we love Monolith because
favorite
of our
company.
Mythic Battles love. But Solomon Kane is a really cool dungeon crawler, and we have a bunch of expansions for it. So yeah.
Yeah, speaking of a bunch of expansions, we actually have everything you possibly can have for Solomon Kane, including a lot of artwork. This is just such a cool theme, especially if you're wanting something more out of the box than your traditional fantasy style.
This is a game that Westin got off of Facebook Marketplace from a group that he's a part of, Board Game Exchange. So I think we met up with a guy at a gas station and loaded up like just tons and tons of Solomon Kane boxes, and it was a very exciting night.
Yeah, something that we talk about and appreciate about our collection is we've actually been blessed to spend very little throughout our time of collecting. So I got every piece of Solomon Kane for $90. And what I really appreciated, it was after this guy had put so many run-throughs and so many playthroughs of this game. So he's able to talk about everything he appreciated about it, instead of him just getting bored of the game and pushing it off onto us.
The next game we want to talk about is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, or as we like to call it, Gloob. Jaws of the Lion is the first dungeon crawler board game I have ever played in my life, and I didn't know what to expect, and I wasn't really expecting to like it as much as I have. We've had a ton of fun playing this game.
Yeah, we have, which we've had a bunch of fun with Gloomhaven as well. This is probably the most popular dungeon crawler out of all the ones we have. Many know that it was at the top of BGG for quite some time, then has fallen down maybe to like 5 or 6. I haven't actually checked it in a little while, but a fantastic game with a pretty easy access point, especially when you go through Jaws of the Lion first. Our other dungeon crawler with lots of minis is Bard Sung. One of my favorite things about Bard Sung is the final boss at the end. You can see here that he is so extremely detailed and just huge compared to other miniatures.
This is definitely a conversation piece that we have in our house for sure.
Without a doubt. It is the largest miniature I own, which we own a lot of minis. We want to include Tenaris Adventures in this list as well, because it does take what we'll talk about later, one of our favorite skirmish systems, and turn it into a very, very exhilarating adventure in a diverse and beautiful world. Moving on to our skirmish and fighting games, you'll see that this is absolutely our largest genre of games we have.
The first game in that genre is going to be Arena the Contest. This is in the Tenaris Adventures world, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, I just absolutely love Arena the Contest. It has to be one of my favorite skirmish systems, especially in all the ways that you can never ever get bored of it, with simply trying a new character, all the way to completely changing the game with scrolls and abilities and all that good stuff.
The next game we have is Ignite. This is a game that I always make jokes we can only play in the wintertime because of how it looks. But it is The thing about Ignite that shocked us when we first got this game was how many cards are in this game box. We also have the Freeze expansion for it. And again, this is one that Westin got online for pretty cheap. So getting that in the mail and opening that up was really, really exciting.
Yeah, if you've never heard of it, it is a great skirmish game using anthropomorphic animals. So there's bears versus centaurs, all that fun stuff. The next game that I also really love in this genre is called Gatefall. Gatefall, again, has these huge, detailed miniatures. Specifically, we have the fantasy versus the post-apocalyptic faction, but there are more that have come out, including Gatefall Monsters on Kickstarter.
The next one we're going to talk about is Wildlands. To me, this is one of the most underrated games. It feels like a lot of people don't know about it. It's a really fun skirmish / gem collector game, almost Mythic Battles light. Very light, I should say. It's really quick to set up, super easy to learn, and a ton of fun to play.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I love Wildlands as well. It's a very underrated system, and if you've played the game, you know just activating your units. They do it in such a unique way that I really haven't seen in any other game. Of course, we're also going to talk about our favorite board game of all time, Mythic Battles. We have Mythic Battles Pantheon and Mythic Battles Ragnarok with a bunch of expansions. And if you want to know more about that, you'll just have to see every other video on this channel.
The next game we've got in this genre is Brutality, which is one I haven't personally played a ton of, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, Brutality, I would say, wouldn't be my first game to play. If somebody was just learning skirmish games, it could be pretty brutal, as it is in the name. And it's definitely a game that can get frustrating, but it has a very cool theme and very cool miniatures as well. We have Fallout Wasteland coming out next. Fallout is really big right now with the Amazon series coming back, but I have been a huge Fallout fan my whole entire life, and this is a great way to interact with that world through board games.
The next one we want to talk about is Ascension Tactics. I really like this game. Again, it has multiple different scenarios. It's skirmish, kind of mixing with a little bit of campaign stuff. We really, really love this game. It's, just really enjoyable.
Yeah, this was probably one of our most played games before we ever played Mythic Battles, which makes a lot of sense. It is somehow very similar, and we do have the miniatures version of that game. It doesn't really make sense that they made it in any other way, but nonetheless. Next, we have the Waylanders. This is another skirmish system that actually, if you looked on BGG and had all of the same categories and mechanisms put into their search system from Mythic Battles, Waylanders will come up. But it is very much a different game, but it does have those kinds of influences.
The next one we have is Senjutsu. We do have a full video on this reviewing it, so check that out. But this is a Japanese-themed skirmish game that has a little bit of a slower pace. We only have 4 characters for this one, so we're really hoping to expand it in the future.
Absolutely. Next, we have Super Fantasy Brawl. This is a game that I've painted almost all the miniatures for, so it makes it much more fun when we play. This is a game that is very simple, and that's kind of hard to find in this genre. It also is very fun because you don't feel like you're having to draft all these units that are so super complicated. Everybody feels distinguishable, but also quite simple. I would actually say the same thing about Dragon Prince. This one might be a little bit harder, but if you've played anything in this genre, especially what we'll talk about later, Unmatched, if you've played Unmatched, this game is super easy to learn.
Very similar. Shout out to Mox Board Games in Seattle for the custodian recommending that we try out Dragon Prince when we were there. We bought it immediately and really had a fun time. It was a really sweet trip in Seattle.
Yeah, it's just a good way to almost experience more Unmatched in a totally different world. The next thing we're going to talk about is Song of Fire and Ice. We have one of the starter sets, Lannister versus Stark. And I originally got this to paint it, and I don't have any interest in the Game of Thrones series, or neither does Natalie, but we love war games, and we love miniatures, and it definitely comes with a lot of it, and it's a very fun way to get your brain burning for a little while.
Next we have High Heavens, which is a really sweet little game. Again, kind of Mythic Battles scaled down by a ton. This game was the first miniature I ever painted was from this game. And this game has a very cool way of tracking health, a very cool table presence. You have these chips that you're standing on, so the healthier and the stronger your god is, that taller it is. So that's a really fun kind of chip system there.
Yeah, this is a game I don't know if I've seen anybody talk about. It's very indie, very unheard of, but we absolutely love it. And we have like the Egyptian expansion for it. So it is very much this like miniature Mythic Battles, because we have, the original set has like Pantheon versus Nordic, so it was very fun playing that and then going straight into Mythic Battles.
Mm-hmm. The next game we want to talk about is Unmatched. We love Unmatched. This is one of the games that started our collection. The story is that we were visiting my family, and my family has a tradition of always going to Barnes & Noble the day after Christmas. My family always gets everyone Barnes & Noble gift cards, and we go there the day after Christmas because they have half off hardcover books the day after Christmas. But what we didn't know is they also have half off board games. Unmatched was the last game in our giant pile that we sorted through on the floor of Barnes & Noble. It was the last game we said, let's go for it. We played it for the first time in the hotel that night and just fell in love with it. This is one of the first skirmish games we ever played. We definitely played it wrong for the first 2 or 3 times, just missing little rules, but we like that. I think learning a game as you go is totally okay, and it was Unmatched is super important to us. We have a ton of expansions. We don't have all of them, but yeah.
We've also definitely enjoyed the recently released Unmatched Adventures, but Natalie is right. This is absolutely a staple game in our household. Whenever people come over, especially if they're not as familiar with board games, we tend to break this out because it is honestly the simplest way you're going to make a game where you have individual asymmetrical characters with a whole deck of their own abilities fighting each other. I just feel like they went for such a easy access point, and I really appreciate that because there's also a way to build strategy. It's not going to make you feel as strategic as Mythic Battles, nor is it going to be anywhere as long as a game, because you're only normally controlling 1 or 2 units. Leaving the skirmish and fighting genre, we do have a few area control games, starting with Blood Rage. This was the very first, I would say, complicated board game that got me into the gaming genre and hobby. Mostly, I did grow up playing board games, but they were much more simple than this. When I first had Blood Rage, it was actually the only board game I had for quite a long time. And I was so obsessed with it, I taught every one of my friends how to play it. And I still have such a love for anything Eric Lang has made. And I do have such a deep love for Simon as well. You can see we also have Ankh, which is a very similar game to Blood Rage. Don't get me wrong, it is not just a reskin Blood Rage with an Egyptian aesthetic. It adds a lot of gameplay, and I really do like. Probably the gameplay of Ankh out of the 3 is my favorite. Thematically, it would have to be Rising Sun. I love the Japanese aesthetic over any other, especially when it comes to my games. So they've just done such a great job with that.
Another one we want to talk about is Lords of Ragnarok. This one is also a really fun story. I biked home from work one day and came into the garage, and Weston had this look of utter shock on their face. And I was like, what happened? Who died? What's going on? And you came up to me and you said, we won, because you had donated to a cause for board gaming and mental health, and there was a raffle, and you kind of forgot about it for months, and then you got an email that said, congratulations, you won, you're getting the entire set of Lords of Ragnarok.
Sun dropped as well.
Yeah, which is hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, at that time, if you want to buy it, because it was just when it was coming out, I mean, if you want to buy it on like Game Steward or something like that, it was like $600. So this was absolutely such a blessing. And as you can see, this game is very beautifully made with very intricate, original takes on these traditional miniatures, these traditional characters. It is a very complicated game. We've had a very hard time learning it, getting it to the table. You've seen that there has been some pushback when it comes to professional board game critiques, but we do plan on eventually sinking our teeth into this one, and I will always feel that cherished moment of being like, this is literally like free. It's insane. I felt so incredibly blessed. All right, now we're going to talk about our spooky section.
Spooky. For some reason, we really like, I don't know, I think there is a lot of spooky board games out there, but for some reason, we tend to gravitate to them. Not necessarily horror, but spooky. So the first game we have in this genre is Etherfields, and I'll let you chat a bit more about that.
Yeah, Etherfields is a game about navigating the dreamscape. So it is very surreal. It is very nightmarish, but it is not in any way, as Natalie said, horror. It has beautiful minis. This is also Awakened Realms, which has done so much good work, including Lords of Ragnarok. And a lot of people would say that Awakened Realms makes the best miniatures.
Something I think as far as our dungeon crawlers kind of story games, Etherfields is my favorite looking. There's a lot, it's a very different type of story. So it's different gameplay. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite gameplay of all of those. It's great. But as far as just the visuals, they are stunning, and I think this one will eventually be a very fun one to watch Weston paint as well as participate in painting.
Absolutely. Next, we have Nightfall. This is absolutely one of our favorite games ever. We love introducing this game to people. This is a very, very underrated game. The BGG score isn't that great, and I've honestly seen a lot of people be like, yeah, it wasn't that great. To mix asymmetric skirmish with just a really fascinating theme. The campaign mode or the adventure mode we loved as well, and spiced it up a little bit. Instead of using like a pen to mark it, we got the paintbrushes out and like X marked the spot on the map, which was super fun as well. I can't honestly recommend this game enough.
Yeah, we really, really love Nightfall. This was probably our most played game about 2 years ago. And we had a lot of fun connecting and enjoying the game together. Super interesting, super different. Again, like Weston said, a lot of our friends have enjoyed it with us, and that adventure campaign mode was pretty unexpectedly amazing. So that's great. The next one I want to talk about is Vagrant Song. This one, can't help but love the design. I'm talking like I have on many occasions said we should get Vagrant Song tattoos because it's just such a cool game and the mechanics are super interesting and super fun.
The next game we're going to talk about is Mr. Jack. It's not necessarily spooky, but it's kind of in this mystery genre. Mr. Jack is a very simple classic board game where you either play as Mr. Jack or a detective, and you are trying to figure out who's going around everybody, and it's just a very fun way to pass 30 minutes or so.
Absolutely. We have Keep the Heroes Out. Keep them out. This is a really fun game. We played this, it was like every day almost when we first got it. We just absolutely loved it. It is a fun take on a dungeon crawler where the roles are reversed and you play as the monsters. You're trying to keep the heroes out of your beloved dungeon. It's very, very cute and very fun.
Talking about that same idea and cuteness, we have Vast Mysterious Manor from Leader Games, which has also made Root, which is much more popular. Vast is a very wonderful game.
Next we have Betrayal at House on the Hill. This is one of the few games I played before I met you, and I really love it. It's exploring a creepy manor, and halfway through it kind of starts co-op, and typically halfway through the game someone betrays everyone else, and it kind of changes the scenario halfway through the game. Super fun to play with your group of friends.
Absolutely. As well as Mysterium seems to be a good game kind of like for a get-together kind of atmosphere rather than like we are just focusing on the game and talking about nothing but the game. It is a game where you are trying to help a ghost solve its murder, but the ghost can't talk at all, but it gives you these dreams and visions to try to lead you in the right direction.
I will say I've been known to play a very good ghost, and I really love the visuals in Mysterium.
Yeah, the art is just really fantastic. Speaking of great art, we have Oko. Now, Oko is a very big world with a lot of different games. We have Oko Chronicles of Darkness, as well as a few of the Cycle of Water expansions. This is also kind of a dungeon crawler, but it has this spooky theme to it where you play as ninjas and samurais trying to defeat Oni as you navigate through dark corridors. Now we're going to talk about kind of the rest of our games. These are games we didn't really fit into the specific place on our shelf, so we just kind of put them all over here. Namiji is essentially the boat version for Tokaido.
We have Tidal Blades, which Westin has said is like Mario Party in board game form.
That would be a really cool board game if someone comes up with that. It was me. I thought of that. You didn't. Next, we have Wasteland Delivery Service, which is not Mario Party in board game form.
We have Spirit Island, which I love, particularly something about Spirit Island. It is a more complex game in a very simple looking package, and something I like is the components they chose very intentionally what materials to make them out of. So the natural wood versus the plastic kind of colonization. Mm-hmm. So it's a very cool story.
Yeah, for a long time we would have our friends over and we'd be like, guess which of these games has the most complicated rate on BGG, and we'd show them Spirit Island. They'd be like, it can't be, it looks so innocent. And I'm like, yes, it can be very complicated. We also have Sleeping Gods, which is another beautiful adventure game that I was blessed enough to receive for my birthday from Natalie.
It was for Christmas.
Oh.
We have Valor and Villainy. This is a fun one where depending on which team you play, it's a totally different game. And yeah, super cool.
It's a very fun one versus many that I would definitely recommend. Mm-hmm. These next two games I would say are favorite small box board games ever. The first is going to be Rift Force. This is also a game that I've seen be pretty underrated and people not really give a chance. We love this game. We have one of the expansions for it and it'll stay in our shelf forever.
Yeah. This is one that Westin bought totally on instinct. He liked the way the pictures looked, the way the cards looked, bought it, and then it was incredible. So we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, I guess to elaborate on that story, I was focusing so much time and energy making sure I was going to buy the right board game next. And it was kind of taking the joy out of the hobby a little bit. So I told her the next board game we're going to buy, I'm only going to buy it based off of how it looks, like the artwork. And it ended up being like our favorite when it comes to a small box game for a long time. And now it is tied with the next game, Hidden Leaders.
We love both of these games. We play them interchangeably when we're looking for a small box game. This one is super fun. Again, a Facebook Marketplace find for super cheap. You get to, it's kind of hit and roll, but with cards. There's not a lot of fighting. There's a lot of guessing, mystery, and just beautiful artwork. We do have the Kickstarter version, so we've got some extra perks with that. And I just personally, this is one of my favorite small box games. I love the mix of kind of guessing and strategy. It's great.
Speaking of small box games that Natalie also loves dearly is Mini Rogue.
Mini Rogue is the cutest. We just played this today, and I love how simple and small it is. It's the perfect game to take if you're traveling light. And it is just, it's fun, it's cooperative, it's a little tiny baby adventure in a tiny box, and beautiful artwork, so it's one of my favorites.
We are working on a small review for that game, but essentially I would say that before Slay the Spire board game came out, this would be your best bet to get that kind of experience.
Next one we'll talk about is Dragoon. Speaking of cute, tiny games, we have the upgraded components for this one as well, and it is all about the feel with Dragoon. The mouth feel. Not really. They look like candy. It is a really fun game, surprisingly strategic, and just a great small box game.
Yeah, when you really want to know what it's like to be a dragon, play Dragoon. We have a game called Dungeon Derby. This is a very cool fantasy racing game, very old school. You can see that we have dice thrown all of season 1. I'll let Natalie take this one away.
This is my favorite game that we own. I love, it is for me the perfect mix of strategy and chance. And when you're playing against Westin, you need a little bit of luck, a little bit of chance. Because if it's all strategy, that brain's gonna beat you, at least in my experience. So I love Dice Throne. Weston's very fun to play with. But I love Dice Throne. We played this the night before our wedding. We have thoroughly enjoyed many games of this. Anytime we're at a board game cafe, very often we wind up finding Dice Throne and digging through characters that we don't own and haven't played, but I really hope to own this whole series at some point. It is asymmetrical, it is fighting, it is one of the more unique board games I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And I really do think that we should pick up Dice Throne Adventures sometime. I've heard very good things about that. We have, speaking of head-to-head dueling with cards and such, we have Omen, which is a Greek-based card game. We also have Tiny Epic Tactics, which is a very fun, like, hit the nail on the head, skirmish, asymmetrical game in a very small box. A surprising amount of characters to choose from. It is a great time if you're a lover of the genre like me.
We also have Tiny Epic Defenders, which we have never beaten. It is so hard, but this is a defense game. It is really interesting. It's cooperative, really fun, tiny game.
We absolutely love defense games. I think that the tower defense genre and just the defense genre as well, you could do a lot of fun things with. You know, thinking of classics like Ghost Stories, which is now been made into The Last Bastion. That's another really good defense game that we don't personally own. We have Killer Bunnies, which this is a very fun, light party game that doesn't take a lot of thought, but can create some very wacky scenarios.
This is the most complicated board game my family will play, and we play it very frequently when we visit my family.
This is also an area control game, just like Blood Rage or one of the other ones. It's called Meso. Meso I have actually painted the gods for, and it is a Central Latin American mythology-based area control game.
Another game we have is Dominion. This is, again, one I played before I met Weston. This is a deck builder. Super simple, really sweet game.
We have Splendor as well. This is also one of our most played games. If you want a very chill time with a little bit of strategy, please play Splendor. It is about collecting jewels and ultimately getting the right relations with the right nobles.
We've played this game a lot. It's, again, another game that's pretty easy to teach people. People catch on to it pretty quickly. And it is one of the first board games we got into. I have a lot of fond memories of drinking coffee and eating pie and playing Splendor.
And that has been our board game collection. Thank you so much for joining us as we reminisce and just enjoy this hobby with you. My name is Weston.
My name is Natalie.
And this has been The Liar the Darker. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.